Good evening, everyone. Ellen Sutter of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. We have Dr. Robert James Goodman and his wife Denise.
Hello, Alan. You're muted.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And how are you guys? Oh, I'm still muted?
No,
Okay. I don't know
I
why.
can hear you. Can you hear us?
No, I'm not muted. Let me see
We're not
something.
muted either. The little microphone.
You are muted.
You are muted. You are muted. Your little mute microphone has a line through it. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good, good. I'm doing something here. Let me do that. Okay, thank you guys for being here. Hopefully there's not a lot of slapback. I do hear a little bit, but I thank you guys for coming out here. I hope I settled that so you guys can hear me really good.
Yes. We can hear you.
Okay. Awesome
We don't hear
sauce.
nothing.
And so, wait a minute.
We don't hear any feedback.
You don't hear the feedback?
No.
No. We hear
Okay.
you loud and clear.
Do you have another device on?
No.
No.
Turn off my iPad.
Okay.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'll turn off my
You'll need to
phone.
unlock your iPad.
okay. Are you guys seeing yourself on both devices?
No.
Just one.
Just
Okay.
one. Yeah.
We just have you on the computer here. Everything else is off.
Okay. So I don't. Okay. I thought this would solve things,
Oh,
but
wow.
I'm going to. Can you guys? You say you guys can hear me well?
Yes.
We have powered off everything else. Things are turned off. The iPad's off. My phone is off.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys for being here again. Ellen Sutter of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. We thank you guys for coming tonight. Thank you through every tech that has happened. And thank you guys for joining us. Today, our guest is Dr. Robert Goodman and his awesome wife, Denise Goodman. And we're going to talk about his book, Unaware of Your Awareness, Learn and Unlearn and Relearn the Basis of Relationship that you have with yourself and unlock greater passion and purpose and prosperity. Thank you, Dr. Robert. That book up there, that's a lovely book. Dr. Robert, tell folks about yourself and why you penned this book. And I'm gonna mute myself while I'm listening.
Okay. Well, growing up in the South, and just learning that I was dyslexic, and well, finding out, early on I was dyslexic, and the idea of the teacher asked me to spell Mississippi, and well, let's get it right. She was the kind of teacher that could sat in a room from raising an eyebrow, and just the idea of she asking me that question, and then having me, then I had to actually tell the truth about how I seen the word, not uh, like other people will see it, but I seen it backwards, and the letters was going all different types until I actually seen the word backwards. So I stepped to the other side of the blackboard and spelled the word backwards, starting with IPPI. And so my teacher said, James, you are dyslexic, and that is unique. And so just by hearing that word and knowing that it wasn't something I did wrong, I'm a wrong person, I was a unique person. And after I went to the library and looked it up, I realized what the definition was and just lived my life according to it and let it be uh, the doorway up to my path, I shall say. More?
We can't hear you
You
now.
muted.
You're muted.
Okay.
Wow. We know, Dr. Robert, I didn't want to skip this. You were born in a Cadillac. What was some of the things that your family told you about those experiences?
Okay, yeah, I wrote down here I was literally moving when I was in 1957 in the back seat of a 1957 Cadillac, and just them telling me that story, and as I was growing up, other people would see me coming, my relatives and stuff, and they'd go, "Oh, here come Cadillac Slim," and they tell their version of the story, and so it was a really my family was really loving in just that avenue of being, I say, in that journey of I'm going a little too fast here, but in that journey of my mom having me going down Southern Highway in Arkansas, and just me being born in the back of a seat of a Cadillac in the open skies. It had me to feel a journey of what else was out there for me. And I did not let dyslexia stop me after finding that out. And my sixth grade teacher said I had a special talent. Do not ever stop using it. And that just really carried me on just further in just doing what it is I'm doing now. I ended up with a PhD in philosophy, a bachelor's in humanity, and just living my life, and we've been together for 35 years and plus. And so, what else you want to add?
Well, I mean, they nicknamed you Cadillac Slim, and I also think that being born in that car influenced your later life when you studied mechanics at one point as a young adult and learned how to repair old um, classic cars, which is also something that he mentioned in his book, that he, at the university where they he came to live, they had all these classic Cadillac limousines. And, um, that was a time when there weren't a lot of uh, mechanics around that knew how to work on them, but you learned from your father in Arkansas, and I think your love for those Cadillac limos maybe came from being born in a 1957 Cadillac.
That was one, yes. And just that being raised on a farm, and my father and uncles, they taught me how to drive a tractor, drive a cotton picker. My father taught me how to drive a cotton picker at the age of 11. My uncle taught me how to drive a tractor and drive a 2 mile by two, plow 2 mile by 2 mile field at the age of 10. And so it was just little things like that as time goes on, and I was learning from it, and it became wisdom and knowledge for me to share to other people's uh, how I was taught, and just by me being dyslexic and having that I don't even want to say it, what's the word? Unique part of me of really taking that and taking that, I should say, open the door to open the door and going through it and really seeing my journey. Oh,
Well, a lot of people who are dyslexic also have great skills in mechanical things. That's known. I studied some information about dyslexia, and there are certain things that um, a lot of people who are dyslexic excel in, and things like mechanics is one of them. So is acting, for that matter, and music. So you you probably were unconscious of it at the time, but
mhm.
the fact your dyslexia was an enabling factor in you becoming mechanic.
Right. And just that having that avenue of journey of having, I'm sure get it right here, of being a
That's
mechanic and then learning other things as I went on and teaching the courses and just relating with different peoples on different things. And I'm seeing it in a pattern versus on just plain English. And like last night, I was saying to her, oh, that wrote a paper towel sitting there. They have really nice pattern on them, And she said, "Oh," and then she looked and said, "Oh, okay." She noticed the patterns too. But right away, as soon as I looked over there, that's what I noticed. The patterns in on paper towels, and that's the way I see things is see them in patterns, not necessarily in words. And the words I do see or read, I tend to want to every third or fourth word, I want to know the definition of it and what it means. And then I stop reading, but it's not the idea I don't know the next word. It's the idea I'm stopping thinking about the last two words. Then I'm thinking about what do they mean? What is the definition? And not only that, what else they can be used for, you know, in a sentence. So little things like that.
that's awesome. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys
Yes.
still
Yes.
hear me well? That is awesome. Um, with that being said, Dr. Robert, so much that you have said that are very important information that we all can hear, especially I don't think we hear of dyslexia nowadays, and especially being in that time that you had went through it. And so what was your earlier childhood growing up in Arkansas during the segregated South? What was that like for you living on a farm?
Uh, well, living on a farm, and yes, there was a lot of segregation things going on, as well as the Ku Klux Klans and a lot of white supremacists as well as black supremacists about uh, how things should go, and just like now. What's his name? Trump. No, he's the president, but everybody wanted to do whatever they want, but get him out of there, and so it's like that on everything. The people have their own viewpoint on one thing or another. I have a viewpoint on the way that I talk, the way that I see things. She have a viewpoint on the way that she talk and the way that she see things, and we are a lot of times we are in a disagreement, but we are saying the same thing, but on on two different levels.
But when you were little, growing up on the farm, what was your like daily life like there?
Growing up on the farm, just I mean, just playing with the horses and cows, and really enjoying the opportunity to learn how to ride a horse and uh, skin a cow and little things like that, and being a shade-tree mechanic with my father. I mean, I mean, he didn't have his own store. He had right there in our yard, the same tree that I would set up under and think about what future that I want. He was right on the other side was cars that he would fix, and people would bring their cars over and fix them, and as well as he taught me that, to be responsible, and actually that really taught me how to uh, be an entrepreneur and taking responsibility and doing stuff, and knowing that in order to really learn something, you have to work at it, and it's not, I should say, easy. It's going to be hard, and if it's everything is easy, then you're not going to learn. You're just going to wait on other people. But if you learn it for yourself and do it for yourself, hey, you are learning wisdom to share out. And that's the way that's the way I see it, and just the idea of my father and uncle taught me all these different things about mechanics and rebuilding a tractor engine, changing a tractor tire, uh, not only changing it, fixing it, taking it off, and that was a scary job, but we did it, you know.
Growing up in the Northeast, I'm 2 years older than he is, but I grew up in the urban Northeast, and the idea of little children picking cotton in the South in in that era in the 50s and 60s was like from another world for me. I never even imagined that. Yet, here he was out there picking cotton every day at the age of 11,
Yeah.
and for money on land and I also think my parents bought a house when I was little, and I came from a very lower middle class background. We didn't have money or anything, but the idea that my parents owned the house that we lived in and all, but they grew up on somebody else's land in somebody else's house. And to me, it's like one step up from slavery, is the way I saw the way that they lived, moving from, if you read in this book, from one house to another, with the seasons to go with the crops. They had to pick up and live in this house and then pick up and live in this house. And it was all something somebody else owned. It was like, um, to me, like I said, my viewpoint is that that life was one step up from slavery, and the stories, that he told me about, not about. We were just talking about this last night about Mr. Stone, one of the landowners, had some land down in a part where there were plantations, and they wouldn't let the land that he rented from the white man who had the plantation would not let black people work that land and pick that cotton, and because they were being paid wages by the man who rented the land. And the reason that the plantation owner didn't want the black people getting paid to pick cotton on the land that he was renting to the white man was because then they lived on his land, the plantation owner, and were for room and board, and they were not paid wages. And I said, oh, well, that's because that man, that plantation owner, didn't want the black people that lived on his land to get the idea that they should be paid wages. He would let white people work on the piece of land that he rented to the white man, but not black people. That was control. That to me is astonishing. That is just nothing but the perpetuation of slavery.
Yes, and there's still some
And
people,
and there's
yeah,
still some people
people's living
that live that
there
way.
in
And
Arkansas. I mean, I haven't been back there in a while, but the last time I went there, I went down to in England, and that sign still was there, plantations, and that's the way the peoples live there. Yeah.
so it's really astonishing to me that, in the South, that people still are living a slavery lifestyle without the label slavery. Because they can't go anywhere. They don't have any means.
Excuse me.
They're beholden to the landowner, and they live on the plantation. And I just find that astonishing.
Yeah.
That's so true. And hopefully you can hear me. I can hear both of y'all really good.
Yes,
So
we can
hopefully
hear
you can hear
you.
me. That is so true. I wondered about that, Denise, and Denise helped me to figure out like some of the things that she was saying. I wondered, Dr. Robert, did you yourself feel as if this was a type of slavery? But because just reading your book and listening to you, it seemed like it didn't, I won't say it didn't bother you, but you didn't let it bother you because you said like picking cotton and being on a farm, being as young as 8 years old, as well as at 11, well, 8 years old doing a tractor. Those who read your book, they'll say that, they'll hear that, or they'll read that.
Read
And
that,
also
yes.
picking cotton at 11 years old. And to me, that's like slavery, like Denise said, that felt like slavery to me to be out there and to be doing those things, especially this is a different day and time of what's
Yes,
going on, but we still feel the ramifications of that systemic things that was going on. And I wanted to ask you too, with your upbringing, and I mentioned that just a moment ago, did you feel like you was in that Jim Crow era? You, Dr. Robert, and I know that
yes. I
like
mean,
Denise said, she
well,
felt different
yes.
things.
Yes, we were definitely in that Jim Crow area, and but just the idea of living that lifestyle and being aware of the racist peoples as well as the Ku Klux Klans, and so I was really being aware of it, but not really worrying about it. Now, I even actually had a friend, was his father was one of the grand poobah, of the Ku Klux Klan. And I was sitting there at his house. We were sitting there watching Popeye one day, and his father walks out with his white sheet on, and he was getting ready to put his hat on. He said, "Oh, hey, Jim, how you doing?" Put his hat on and walked out the door. You know? And so I mean, I felt really comfortable about being around them because I mean they feel comfortable about being around me, and I felt more safely around them because they was very deliberate about what it is they was doing versus on other people's uh, trying to do stuff behind your back and backstep and all that stuff. And
Yeah, I found that like so dissonant, but he explained to me at one point, said, you know, the racist white people and the racist black people were actually more dangerous because they were not overt about what they were doing. But the Klan people, you knew where they were coming from and you knew what their agenda was. And then you told me just yesterday that a lot of their agenda was political versus just, I always thought their whole agenda was just, I hate black people and want to kill them and burn crosses on
not
their
at all.
land. And you're saying no. So, I mean, and you lived this experience. But you also told me that, there were signs up, like in England, Arkansas, saying unwanted people,
Unwanted black people.
people stay
Yeah,
out.
stay
So,
out. Yes,
so
yeah. Only people who's allowed down there was the black peoples that lived on the plantation, and they could only like work the land and do whatever there. But for us, they going anywhere, it was just like slavery. They brought them their clothes, they brought them their food, and most of the food was grown from the gardens, and just like everything else, and the ladies learned to sew clothes, and because I mean the clothes that they was giving them was hand-me-downs. It wasn't no new clothes, and so and it was mostly rags, not even hand-me-downs, you know.
Wow,
so
Dr. Robert, I don't know if you'll hear a delay. I'm sorry, guys, but this is such a great conversation. We still have time here, but I don't want to miss the fact that Dr. Robert, you mentioned that your father and especially being in the South, you said your father he was supervisor over 3 farms. What was that like? And did you really know that this was something that a Black person normally don't get that type of position? So were you aware of that, or
I was aware of that, yes, and just well, he was born on Mr. Stone Place, and so and actually Mr. Stone, Mr. Bud, and Mr. Junior, and my daddy was the same age, went to school together. So their father had this here all this land, and so when they passed it on to them, and Dad started being the supervisor of the 3 farms, and my mother was the supervisor of the maids in the house. And so and that's the way we live. In the summertime, we would move in this here big white house, and then in the wintertime, we move into this little red house. We call it the big white house because it had 5 bedrooms. The little red house had 4 bedrooms. But the big white house was big enough for well, at the time I was like maybe 9, 10 years old, and I can walk up on the house, just straight up. And we had our after Dad built our little playroom down there, so we'll go out on the porch, go down the stairs, and that's what we played, and then pretty much the entire up under the house.
wow? So Dr. Robert, um, What was your understanding? What I mean, were you clear on the understanding that in one house you was here and then and the other one you get to the red house? Was there any indication as to why you had to do that? Was it because
Because
of
in the summertime, we work the farms, and stuff. But then in the wintertime, uh, Dad, the people they plow the fields and get everything ready, and so we'll move over to the area because it was closer to where he wanted to. I mean, was going to be doing all the plowing, and we didn't. Move our furniture. We had furniture in both houses. All we did was just go to each house. In the summertime, we went to the big white house. In the wintertime, we went to the little red house. You know, and once I got to around 16, uh, me and my dad, we would just go to the little red house and leave everybody else at the big white house. And so that's that's what we was doing.
What
wow.
also struck
I'm
me,
sorry, Denise. I'm going to do a reset and say hello to those here. I'm going to do a recess. Thank you, 25, for looking on, whether you're in the room or you're in the chat room. Hopefully, you are enjoying this session. And thank you guys. Our guest here is Dr. Robert Goodman and his wife, Denise. And we're talking about his book, Unaware of Your Awareness. And there's another title that goes along with that. But we're here talking, and I cannot believe that Dr. Robert, him going through this, I call it unsung history, because here we have a person here in this generation, 2026, and Dr. Robert book show a plethora of history within this book, and I wanted to bring them out. This is February, our Black History Month, and this is an unsung story. Hopefully, you guys get this story. I'm going to post it on there at the end of the show. And thank you, 25, for being in the room, whether you're peeking in or come in and out. Dr. Robert and his wife Denise is here, and I have some questions for Denise as well. So hopefully, you guys are still in the room or listening on or any of your devices to hear her questions as well. Dr. Robert had mentioned just before you guys came in that there was a White House and a Red House. And in the summertime, they would go to the Red House. And we were just asking Dr. Robert, what was that like? What were you told the reason why you have to switch from house to house? What was told to you, Denise? Did he ever mention this to you as to those different homes that he had to go to?
oh yeah, and I learned a lot when that I didn't know about him. Even after all this time in the writing of this book, I was really surprised. I mean, at some of the details about the way that um, uh, his family lived, which was not uncommon, I understand, in the South in that era. I mean, like I said, I grew up in the Northeast in an urban area. So the idea that um, people would basically, live as sharecroppers, if you will, if that's even the right term. But I call it, one step up from slavery. Um, uh, Living on other people's land, and farming their crops, and it just blew my mind completely. Um, that they were really at the mercy, if you will, of the landowners. So there was still this backwards looking, I thought that crap was over long before that.
Yeah. No. And also picking the cotton, it was 10 cents a pound at the time. And so it was the first time I picked 100 pounds and made $10. No, and to me that was a lot of money, though. So, but And I did it for the rest of the summer, and then the very next year they came out with cotton pickers, and then my father taught me to drive a cotton picker, and so my uh, what's the salary went up, and that was really fun. That it was I was the only black kid uh, at the time was driving it, could drive a cotton picker, and I ended up doing one guy that he didn't want blacks only, but he didn't realize the person was driving the cotton picker was black, and I in the so the cab was on the dark side, and when I got done, he had this big smile on his face, and then saying as I'm rolling my one down, I really thank you. I mean, you really did a great job, and as soon as I finished letting down on him, went, ah, he, he was totally surprised. Now I said, thank you. And I rode the one back up and I drove on off.
Talk about systemic racism. I mean, you know, and I asked you one thing that I found out about the lifestyle down there, um, and even before he was talking about the before he was born, years before the abolition of slavery, he said a lot of people, a lot of black people still lived the slavery lifestyle. And I said, what do you mean by that? And you said about that they didn't think they could go anywhere.
Oh yeah, they had the thought of like I've seen on the plantation, they didn't go nowhere, and then when the people got the opportunity to go places, they still feel like, oh well, if I leave here, I'm going to lose a place to stay, and if I get a new car, then they're going to I mean, it was all kinds of reason why uh, a black person couldn't rise to the top, because it was the fear of not having it, but taking it, someone taking it from you.
Wow. Dr. Robert, do you remember? I know, like my father, he's from Jackson, Mississippi, really
Mhm.
Florence, and he moved over to Jackson, Mississippi. And my father had this green book. Did you remember having the green book? And I used to wonder why my dad used to travel like, I mean, it took us like a longer
I
than we
do remember,
expected.
I know I didn't have it, but yes, there was a green book in our house, and my uncle will always have it in his truck.
What's a green book?
Go ahead, tell him.
What?
Yeah. So Denise, the green book, not to cut you off, Dr. Robert, I'm
Yeah,
still
go
getting
ahead.
like a short food, but the green book is what we had. Now that I'm older, I realize it was a book, a handbook to tell us where to go as being black people where we will not get killed. So my dad, there were certain places that we could not be at or we will be killed. And so my dad would always be driving with this green handbook, and I'm thinking, why can't we go in here and why can't we go in there? I'm in my 60s, but I do remember that he took a long route and he had that green book in his hand.
Yep.
Wow.
Yes, that's the green book. Yeah. The map of the Underground Railroad.
That's, to think of that in our lifetime. I'm 70, he's 68. But to think that, and your father, you remember the book. This is in our lifetime. And, we I think people today don't even realize just how close we are to that time period. It wasn't that long ago. And there are other things in our society that have replaced a lot of that, but the concepts of suppression and racism are still there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just with blacks.
It's everybody.
I had an interaction. There was an insurance agent, a Hispanic guy, and he was asking about my name. Well, I'm a second generation American. My grandparents immigrated from Italy, Ukraine, Poland, and like that in that, era. And I asked this guy, he's like, well, I never heard your name, your last name like you have, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, don't you know anything about the history of Ellis Island and the immigrants that they brought here on the steamships with a promise of, good jobs and this and that? And basically, it was one step up from slavery, too. It was like these men were working in the coal mines. Most of them died young from black lung disease. And then they were not treated well. They were not, so I sent him a brief summary. I was asking for a new insurance quote, but I thought, it's not just immigrants today or slavery in America. There was a lot of prejudice against people who came from other countries who didn't speak the language. My maternal grandmother never spoke, I mean, paternal grandmother never spoke English. And the way that those people were treated was, there's still a lot of mistreatment of people of different races and ethnic origins in this country today. And it's a holdover from, here we are, the land of the free and all that stuff, but there's still a lot of prejudice.
That's so true. That is so true, Denise. Now I want to talk with you, Denise, and ask you some questions. Woo! So you said, Denise, that you were, if I heard you right, you were raised in an urban area. Did you say that?
Right.
Okay, what was it like for you? Did you fit in, like if you went in white areas? It seems like to me, a person that's white and live in an urban area, for them, it seems like, and I'm just going on the way I was been, because I was in the projects of Chicago as well. I'm very urban myself. So for us, if someone was in our area and they were white, they were just treated no different. But I wondered when they go somewhere else, because I've heard, and not to, and I hope I don't sound mean, they were looked at like white trash, trailer park, if they were in the urban area. What was it like for you?
Well, we were just on the edge of Trenton, New Jersey, but in Hamilton Township, in the township. The neighborhood and the surrounding area where I was all white. And it was pretty homogeneous in that most of the families the parents were first generation Americans from Eastern and Western Europe. I went to Catholic school, which was all white. And um, there were clear defining lines, like literally streets, where you didn't go beyond Greenwood Avenue because then you would be in Trenton and that would be a black area. And the blacks did not come into the white areas. And there was Chambersburg, which was the Italian ghetto, but it was all Italian immigrants and it was safe. You could walk around there, in the middle of the night if you were white. And it was right next to like the black area of Trenton, but the blacks would never touch, never go there. So there was extreme segregation. And as far as I'm aware, it was black and white, and it didn't mix. And then there were the riots in the 60s, the race riots. And so it was dangerous. It was dangerous for white kids, and it was dangerous for black kids. I told him I was raised to be afraid of black people because um, if you were white and you came across and you crossed the line and were in the wrong, neighborhood, you would be attacked, and you could even be killed because they were burning down buildings. It was the civil rights era. You were in Chicago. You had riots too, if you remember that. And so we had to stay in our area, and we were safe in our white area, very white area. And there was no mix. There was no mixing of the races at all. The blacks stayed to themselves and the whites stayed to themselves. There were starting to be Hispanics coming, into the area, and they stayed to themselves. And, even so, I was insulated from integration. There was no integration.
Mm.
When I went to college, in the area. The school was way out in the suburbs. Now it's called whatever it's called, but it was called Trenton State College, but it wasn't in Trenton. It was out. It was a beautiful campus, out in Pennington Township, and
Hmm.
there were black kids from Trenton at the college, but it was predominantly white. But that was the first time, like, I had classes that included black kids, but it was still mostly white.
Mm.
Uh,
So what was that like for you, Denise? I don't want you to get too far because I want to ask you, you said, and I wonder if that's for everybody. And what I mean by that is you said that you were taught, and correct me if I'm wrong, to fear blacks. And so it seems like the way we do in America, you were taught this so you wouldn't like that race. So that's, even though they had a line that separate people, then there was a mental line that also separate people as well. And so with Dr. Robert being your husband, what was that like when you seen him as a black man, being that you were taught, you know, don't to fear black? How was that? How did that come together?
Well, I moved away from my family of origin and away from New Jersey when I was 21, and I moved to Boston to go to graduate school. And that was much more diverse in every way. There were people from everywhere, different countries. The school I went to had a large foreign population. There were all kinds of people from all different countries. So I was exposed to all kinds of people. And frankly, my father was so prejudiced against just about everybody. Even as a child, I didn't understand that. I did not understand, like he was from like Ukrainian Russian background, but he would get mad at my mother and he would attack Italians, Italians. It's like you're married to one, and he hated, honestly, the man hated everybody. And I didn't understand that. I just thought, it doesn't make any sense to me. I did not internalize that. I knew from living in urban areas, and, I went to school in downtown Boston and all that. I knew always, and the way I was trained, I knew how to handle myself in the street. And by that I mean, like if I had parked far away from my apartment, you didn't walk on the sidewalk. And this had nothing to do with race. It had to do with being in an urban area. You don't walk on the sidewalk next to a building in the dark. You walk in the middle of the street on these little side streets. And you carry a key in your hand and you hold it like this because if somebody comes up and tries to attack you, you gouge their eyes out with the key. And that's just basic safety that I think all women my age were taught. You lock the car doors. You learn safety. You learn to be aware of your surroundings, like he was talking about. You learn if you're in a neighborhood that is unsafe, to get out, if it's a high crime area. And to me, that's just, I lived in cities, I lived in Boston, and I was moved to Atlanta for a while for my job. Then I lived in San Francisco. I lived in urban areas where I traveled extensively in the country for my work, all over the place.
So
I'd
would you
end up
say,
in,
Denise,
the middle of
I'm sorry.
Baltimore, where you get like
She said something.
people would just get shot for being alive. And, so I didn't really internalize I'm afraid of a black person. I was just afraid of dangerous situations and dangerous people,
Mm,
drug addicts on the street, people like that. I was all, I knew to stay away, but I did not box it in like black person, run away. It just didn't make any sense to me.
And also
mm,
it had me think about the black peoples on the plantations uh, was really hated by the black peoples that live out in the street in the public, because there was well, it was still slavery, and that's the way they look at it. You scared to come out, you scared to make that move, and you're a coward, and they just call them all kinds of names to the point that they didn't want to leave, and so I would be afraid to leave too at that time, because I mean, I get out there and start to try to make it, but since I came from the plantation, they're gonna treat me a different way,
oh,
and yeah, yeah, and that's the same way when a friend of mine and his wife got together and got married, and it was okay long as they were seeing each other, but as soon as they got married, both sides just really just turn on them, and so and even with Denise and I, we have to sort of like look behind us, here in Reno, in California, it was okay, but I feel a big different here in Reno.
Big
mm,
even the way people look at us, nobody would blink an eye in the Bay Area or San Francisco walking down the street, with somebody of a different race. It's just like, so what? There's so much interracial relationships. There's so many Asians, East Indians. My friends are all different colors and shapes and sizes, I've got Chinese friends, Filipino friends,
Hmm.
friends from India that look different. These people look different from me. I have a lot of Jewish friends. There's a lot of hate going on around. And we came here and I noticed the way people look at me in particular when I'm out with him. And also, even some members of his family resent, the women anyway, resent the fact that I'm with him.
mm-hmm,
This white
mm-hmm.
bitch, or whatever they never call me that to my face, but
But
he's heard them. They've said things to him, about like, snarky comments about, you know, that white woman.
Wow. And it's
Yeah,
still
Yeah,
like that today.
yeah.
yeah. And one of my
Still
relatives,
like that today.
yeah,
So I want to ask you guys in I wanted to ask you, hopefully you can hear me because I'm hearing a little delay. But for you, Denise, I'm curious as to know how you and Dr. Robert met and share your story.
All right. Well, he was teaching at this alternative university in California, and most of the people that lived there were at the time were white. And but it was a place, where he studied, and he managed to, get in there, and it was a residential community, and lived there. And they taught classes to the public, and I was taking a class and he was one of the instructors. So he asked me to, and the class was about relationships between men and women. And
the
um,
name of the course is Basic Centrality.
yeah. And actually, the founder of that place is a black man, half black and half Jewish, but he was, quote, passable. I mean, he did not hide deny the fact that he was black, but he, in earlier years, there were more black people around, but by the time I came around, there were not. So I met him. He asked me to go for coffee. We became acquainted, and I was really eager to hear about his experience teaching and living in the community, which was mostly started uh, white people from wealthy backgrounds who were college educated. So it was like his background was so different from the rest of them. And, I wanted to know more about him. And as I got to know him, one of the ways that I got to know him and spend more time was I enjoyed volunteering for a charity that was run out of the university. He was a major contributor to that effort. And that was a way for me to spend time with him. With the daily food programs, we would take boxes of donated foods out into the poor communities in the neighborhood. And what really struck, I loved going out with him to deliver the food because not only was it fun and gratifying, but it was a way for me to get to know him. Like, people came to expect that and blow the horn, and they knew him, but they respected him. I was impressed by his passion to give to the community and his compassion for the people. He would often carry boxes into the homes of disabled people or elderly people who couldn't come out to the street. And those neighborhoods could be rough, but I always felt safe with him because he was always in control of every situation. I remember one day people were getting a little bit rowdy in the street. It was Thanksgiving. We had turkeys. People were excited. And there was a little bit of thing, and bam, he slammed down the back roller of the truck and just stood there and told people, how to behave and get in line. And it was like they listened to him, and there was no bullshit. It was like, I'm here. This is what we're going to do. You want a food box, like act right. And and then the way that he would feel so happy when, like, a child would come up and grab a cookie or a fruit out of their box and start eating it, and they'd be so happy to have the stuff that we had. And we also volunteered heavily. He was very involved at the Toys for Tots program with the Marines, and would organize, we'd pick up the barrels from the bases, from the army bases, and have these sorting programs where volunteers would help and sort the toys into like this. Families would say, I need this, and this. And we would also deliver them to hospitals and churches in poor neighborhoods that would, give them to the kids. And we became friends. I took more courses, and eventually I became to have a closer relationship. I became deeply attached to him, and I fell in love with deeply respected him. I was so impressed by his outlook on life, his wisdom and experience. And, I once said to him, You're the most accomplished person I have ever met. And I have met, I mean, in my work, I was dealing with some of the top surgeons and in the world and, dealing with them on a personal level, attending their surgeries, dealing with people who were like at the epitome of like their profession. I was dealing with business owners that I worked for that were wealthy and accomplished entrepreneurs that started major companies. Yet he was the most accomplished person I ever met, because coming from where he did, having, learning differences, being Black, and, ending up living with this group of elite people who thought they were so special. That some of them were, a lot of them had trust funds. These were not just like regular middle class white people. These were people who had gone to college, maybe excessively to stay out of Vietnam, who had family money and all this and that. Yet he not only just lived with them, he could go head to head with them on anything, and if there was something, that they said that was prejudicial or wasn't quite right, it wasn't like they just embraced him the way I did, like, oh, I mean, some of them did, but there was still a lot of tension. But he, based on his outlook on life and, the way that he approached people and, took what they would say and maybe turn it around and get them to think about what they said, the way he would come back
Wow.
with a retort. And, somebody who was Jewish tried to, Brian, make a fuss about how you were say he said most Black people don't live like you do. And you told me what you said to
Wow.
him. You said, what are
Denise.
you people, you're not white, what do they call you? And and this guy was like an intellectual, thought he was so smart. That shut him right up. It's like,
Wow.
you're thinking you're so much like different and like that. And I was so I was so impressed with how he even with me, like now.
Wow, Denise, that says a lot. That says a lot about Dr. Robert, especially you did mention that his differences in life. You didn't say like his disability. You knew that he had dyslexia, but it didn't stop you for caring for this man that you love. And so that was what I wondered about too. And that was just something that it was a no-brainer for you. And you said you've been around people who had, just top-notch jobs and different things like that. But the care that how Dr. Robert talked to people, how he cared about people, that was more than enough. I like that, Denise. And I wanted to bring you up to, I mean, you had said so much, I was lost in what you guys were saying. I got to bring
Yeah,
myself
and
back
and
up.
and, and I had to
But
go to
with
the bathroom. But when she was talking about all of the, can you see that? Yeah, the food
finding
giveaways.
more,
Yeah, and having more. Else we put this here food more. It's a food more program, and on this here disc, is me and other people are talking about giving away food and how people is running out to the truck and really just standing in line and there was a couple of kids they while we was videoing them they picked up a muffin and opened it up and started eating it right there, and the little girl was patting the box like this is my box.
And the
uh,
other thing is like
Wow, that is awesome.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you too, Denise. I'm looking at our time, so we won't get too far out. But Denise, I wanted to bring you into 2026. And the reason why I say that, I want to go back a little bit during the pandemic era, Denise. I wanted to ask you especially, and both of you guys. So, what was it like, during the pandemic era, about what, 6 years ago, maybe? What was it like for you, Denise, when we was having these social differences in our world, bringing us back to the 1950s? How did you guys ensure the team cohesion between you and Dr. Robert during these systemic things that are addressed in our world?
well, um, from he even now, like up to this day, I'm always learning from him. He brings a special brand of his own unique brand of wisdom. I always say the term Apple used years ago in their advertising, think different, um, was made for him. He would help me see things differently than my original thoughts, more introspectively. So, we stayed home mostly. I'm retired. I have other businesses on the side, but I'm retired from corporate life. And, the pandemic didn't really have so much of a direct influence. We stayed close to home. We like, to eat at home. We we believe in vaccinations. We got vaccinated. We know that there were people who were anti-vaccination and so on. And we just kept living our lives and found opportunities to do spend more time on like writing books. And I started a jewelry business. So um, you know, we um, we know people who thought that you shouldn't get vaccinated and vaccinations are no. Actually, there's a woman that lives here with us who didn't seem to have a lot of the same points of view she does now when she first started living with us. But she has doesn't think you should get vaccinated and this and that. And you know, those are her viewpoints. And
Right.
and we don't have to engage with her about that. We don't have to talk to her about her viewpoints that we disagree with. She keeps to herself. She doesn't bother us. We're friendly. Um, so right now, um, you know, like I said, I don't think that the pandemic itself really changed anything for us. We just became more careful. I did notice that, there were a lot of people here who were anti-vaxxers who would look at you like, oh, if you had a mask on in the store, they would look at you. You told me a story. He said he was in Home Depot and he had a mask on. And what happened? You want to tell that story about that man that
Yeah, I would, well, yeah, Mo, you go ahead. Go
he
ahead.
said the man was like looking at him in a menacing way and in a menacing position. And so much so, and he was just, buying something and paying for it at the register, but he had a mask on, a serious mask, one of the good ones. And even the cashier felt, he said that cashier put her hand in her pocket. I said, they carry buttons. They give these retail workers these emergency response buttons, like emergency alert. I said she probably put her hand in her pocket because she had one of those things which would call for help. Not the police necessarily, but
And they got them on their phones too.
and they got on their phones that would alert management or whatever to trouble, right? And because that man was looking at him like what are you doing in this store with a mask on? It might not have mattered so much if he was white, but here was a black man in a white area wearing a mask.
It was
Also,
on them gray. It wasn't a white mask. It was a dark gray mask.
it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It was that you were wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of rednecks here. There's a lot of white redneck people here.
Yeah. So I kind of thought that's what I was wondering about that, it was just very dark for all of us, not only just for others. So with him, like you said, but how did you feel, Denise, when he came back with that story? Did you say, here we go again in our society? What did you feel like?
I felt angry. I felt disgusted, and when things like that happen, my immediate think is I want to move back to California. But there are places in California where there's a lot of prejudice too. I mean, in the Bay Area, you have a high level of tolerance and differentiation, but there are some redneck areas of California too. But it had me think, I don't want to live here. One day we went to a place that fixes motors. Like there was something wrong with the rototiller or something.
Right.
And we walked into the shop together, and the man was like, the owner there it was a small place, refusing to even engage with us. We were trying to explain what was wrong with the thing, and he was like, we don't deal with that. We don't. And we left. And then he had another question, and said he wanted to go back in and ask the man a question. Well, that man had locked the door. He didn't want us back in the store. And, I said to him, oh, I feel like, not that I would ever do this, but I said, I feel like throwing a Molotov cocktail through his window. And, and he said, it's not worth it. Right? It's like he's been followed in stores. He went into a fancy store that sold furniture but electronics looking for a cord, and two security guards followed him all the way around. I would never go in that store again. No security guards are going to follow me around in R.L. Willie. No security guards are going to follow a white man around in that store. But he's been followed around in stores here.
Right. And when I asked the one of the cashiers about the cards, no, we don't have that kind of card. Even before I can even explain it, even before I said what kind of card. What is it you want? I said, I'm looking for this kind of card. We don't have that. Can I give you the truth? And I was actually handing the thing with the paper with the exact number and everything written on it. But he said, "Oh, we don't have that."
Wow.
And this was a huge store. And the other thing that happened that really was upsetting to me, we were down at the Riverwalk one summer, and walking along, they had like a festival and there were restaurants, and we wanted a table outside. We wanted to eat on the patio. And nobody, they wouldn't seat us. And people were coming in after us and they were seating them and they were ignoring us. And we just decided to leave. And he said to me, these people aren't used to dealing with Black folks. You know, we never experienced that in the Bay Area. Never.
No.
But here, yeah. I've been looked at like with hate, with by men in disgust, seeing me with him. They look at me like, and I'm not like, we don't walk around in public showing, holding hands or doing anything. We just walk around like normal people. But just the fact that I'm with him. The other thing is, since this neighborhood is white, I make sure that anybody I talk to, a neighbor or somebody, knows that a Black man lives in this house. He belongs here, right? He belongs in this neighborhood,
Yes. Yeah. And when we first bought this house, I was out in the front yard and this guy stopped. He said, "Is the owner here?" I said, "I am the owner." He pulled off.
Wow, to this day, Denise, you guys still go through this to this day.
To this day, that's
right?
right. It ain't nothing changed. It just uh was a bit more deliberate about what is going on. In but hey, back in the days, in the Jim Crow area, yes, you have to really watch your back, but you know what is what. But here, I mean, all these here peoples are interracial peoples and stuff, and they still have me say, "Oh, a black man with a white woman." But a black man with a Chinese woman or something else, that's okay. But with a white
Yeah,
woman, oh God.
anything that's black, that's what I always notice, that if it's white in anything else, there's no alarm. But when it's black and white, there is a huge alarming thing.
Yeah.
It's
Now, our
very alarming.
neighbors, our neighbors on the one side, we have, she's from Mexico. She has a PhD. She's on faculty at the University of Nevada, Reno. Her husband is white. We were talking one day. She said, I was going to be give a talk at an event. I was dressed up. I had a suit on. I had my badge on. I went to the restroom. I was in the stall doing my business. I come out of the stall. There's a white woman standing there and says, "This restroom is for staff only." And she grabbed her badge and she said, "I am faculty." And she says she's the token Mexican, right? And the woman across the street is also Mexican American, and she teaches at the same university. And I was telling her when they bought the house, I said, "Oh, you got to meet the people across the street because Maria's works at the university too." And and turns out they were in a similar department. And she told me, I told her what Maria said. She said that she's the token Mexican. And Lydia, the other Mexican woman who's married to a white guy, shook her head like, "Me too." you know and she's got these are people who have good jobs. She's got a PhD. She's a permanent faculty member and teacher at the university, a 4-year university, but she feels like she's the token Mexican in her department.
Hmm.
That's that I'm not used to that.
It's been going around and
But
happening.
I mean,
When you
after
both,
living for
Dr. Robert and Denise, when you both see that in me as being a Black woman and someone, when we think of privilege, and this is just for me, Denise and Robert, when I think of privilege and to see it at the point of you have to almost kill each other, then what privilege is it? If I have to deny, if I have to almost kill, how is that white privilege? You know what I'm saying? And I do understand what white privilege means as a Black woman, And I remember my sister telling me, this is back in the 50s, my grandmother in Mississippi, but she's a Chicagoan at this time. She goes to the store, and this is in the 50s, and there's only one bag of sugar. My sister told me that she's the oldest, she's born in the 50s. One bag of sugar on the shelf. And my sister told me, my oldest sister, she said that my grandmother was going to reach.
You froze.
No, grandma, that's your sugar. She said, no, be quiet. And so my grandmother knew to keep her safe and to keep us safe, just go ahead and let the white woman have the last bag of sugar.
Wow.
And I'm like, is that privilege to step over somebody to see that that is white privilege? And so, like I say, Denise, just hearing you and Dr. Robert, I call you guys my unsung history, because you guys have so much history together in our systemic world, and just moving about, just being a couple, that you get these things going on. Like you say, he went to the store and he had the paper of what the cord looks like, and they said that's not here. And then what is he to do? To stay safe, to go home, to start a riot or something like that. And if he were to talk more, then they would say that he's an angry black man.
That's right.
Right. And, so he's, learned and, said to me, like, you just walk away and don't do business with those people because it's not worth putting yourself in danger, and it's not worth doing business with people who think that way, right? It's not worth me throwing a Molotov cocktail, which I would never do, through the window. But that's how I felt. I felt angry. I felt, I have white friends who were friends with me for years and years, like 20, 30 years, who really don't bother with me anymore. And I am sure that the reason is they think if they invite me somewhere, he's going to come. And these are people that I've known for a long time. And I know another woman who's married to a black man who has said the same thing. She told me that when I first got together with him. She said, these women, meaning white women, you've known me, lived with me for years, but when I married Bill, they started treating me differently. So it goes both ways. And, so somebody that I know said to me within the last, year or two, there's no systemic racism in America anymore, a white woman. And I just walked away because I didn't even want to get into the conversation with this idiot. Because that is an idiotic prejudice thing to say. That is pure ignorance.
Yeah.
For somebody not to even for somebody to think that, it's like, I'm thinking, like, has your life been so insulated that you don't know anything? Like that you haven't seen anything? Yeah, so I get charged up
Wow. So,
about
Dr. Robert and Denise, I know, like I say, there's some delay. Thank you, 25, for looking in. And hopefully, you guys swipe and share. Tonight, we have our guest, Dr. Goodman, Robert James Goodman, and his wife, his awesome wife, Denise. Goodman, and just to have this conversation. This is a conversation that people do not want to talk about in our world. And for you, Denise, thank you so much for telling your truth and telling that these things are real. Dr. Robert, with you going through the things in the South, in Arkansas, learning how to be a role model to society, especially the structure in which you had, where you
Right.
came from, uh, living on a farm, and also seeing your dad and your mom do work hard, and you saw their leadership, and you did better. I remember you in your book, you mentioned that you was a night worker at a certain place. I forgot.
Yes, I was at
Yeah.
Union 76, started working there, and I became the night manager. And it was just me being very aware of what I was doing, and I knew how to. Well, I was trained from my parents and mother and father on how to work and working hard. It was making something of yourself, not just trying to get over on someone else. So that's what I did. And I was a manager there at 16 years old at the Union 76 truck stop. And it felt really good. And the idea of me being responsible and taking ownership and being an entrepreneur of doing just that, it gave me a path of going forward and knowing that I can do other stuff, not just stay in the little small town that I was in. No, it's like, okay, when I was thinking about being a truck driver, it was an opportunity to go and see the world. And that's one of the things my uncle said, learn the world, but don't let the world rule you. You know.
I love that. I love that. So, Denise, you and Dr. Robert, what would you tell the society nowadays of how you guys feel and how, if someone else is in an interracial marriage, what would you say to those people to be cohesive um, toward those systemic things? What would you say to society?
I would be honest and say, like this girl Patty talked to me, this white girl. It's like, you're going to be shunned by people on both sides of the racial spectrum because there's not, with black and white anyway, and depending on where you live, um, I would suggest, you're safer and better off in a more urban area where there's more diversity. Like I would never go live in the South. If in fact, if I knew that Reno was as prejudiced and white as it is, I don't think I would have moved here. But that's another story. I really didn't know. And uh, I feel more comfortable in California. Um, I like nobody's gonna look the other way. I mean, it really just look the other way. It's like, man, they're just people walking down the street, nobody thinks anything about it.
I think it's two other black families live in the neighborhood to see kids going to school, with other kids, and it's three black kids walked down the other way with a couple of guys, white guys, but more than that, I really never even seen the parents, but I know they live down that way towards the school. uh, and they're about 9, 10 years old, something like that. Oh,
But he wanted to show you his
yeah.
newest.
This is my new book.
It'll publish this month. It's called The Mississippi Moment: Reclaiming Your Identity. And there's
I love it. When is it coming out?
next month. It'll be we're just in the process of getting
Bring it,
it
bring it
up.
closer to you. I was going to ask you guys what's next. Bring it closer to you, Dr. Robert. And
And
he
it's
has it where he's spelled Mississippi backwards.
right,
Oh
Yeah.
my
right. I
goodness.
generated that image with little James at the backboard. Isn't it adorable? Um,
Yes.
and it's so that's coming, that'll be out.
Yeah.
I'm just having trouble with the publishing site being down and uploading all the technical things, but the book is done, the cover is done, and it's so cute.
I love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So, Dr.
uh,
Robert, where can they meet you? Where can they meet you at? And what you have that book, and tell us about that. Where can they meet you at on the platforms?
well, you can come go live with me on my website. I got a 10 minutes talk. So I mean, you can come on for 10 minutes, and I mean, if you if it's fun enough, it's long. I mean, it's a free 10 minutes, and whoever want to come on, and know, and then you can get to me on my website through my email, and I'm on it's at noon vibe, and I have what's that Instagram station account, but I hardly ever use it. So I just starting back to really getting it back up and doing other stuff and getting out there, And so I'm like walking out of retirement.
I love it. Love it. Denise, you guys are just power pack couple. I really enjoyed this moment. It's a lot more than what I thought I was going to hear, which is good. You guys really did well. And Denise, I love your passion in which you talk about your husband and about what's going on in society and keeping that cohesiveness together as a couple. You guys are amazing. I cannot wait to see the other book. And I know that we're going to enjoy it. Is there going to be like a character? Is it written like characters, or is it written like a biography? How is it written?
It's more of a biography of my journey and stuff. But this is my second book I wrote.
The cycles of opportunities. And it's about
Can you see it?
the cycles of
Love
opportunities.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are all, if the two published ones and then the Mississippi Moment are all
Yeah,
available on Amazon. Mississippi isn't up yet, but if you go to Amazon and just put in Dr. Robert James Goodman books, his books will come up. And
yeah.
what else was
Yeah,
I
and we're
gonna say?
also putting up the Ponderosa, our
We
publishing
starting
company.
a publishing
I did.
company.
I typed your name in. I think I've seen about 3 books that's already loaded up on there.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 But thank you
So,
guys for being here. It is that time, guys.
Okay.
Hopefully we will see you guys again, and I will give you guys this here thing. It has been an amazing night.
Okay.
thank you for
Yes.
having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about the second book and especially the third one. And I actually
Thank you
got
so
three.
much.
Yeah, and I have three
Good night,
titles.
guys.
Yeah. Good night.
Good night.
All right, bye-bye. You just hit that X and that'll bring you down.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much. This
All
has been
right.
great.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.
Thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. This has been an amazing time. There is some feedback, but I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Again, I'm Ellen Sutter of ESP Presents and ESP Book Chats, where we bring page turners your way. Also, stay tuned for Chelsea King. We're going to talk about her book, and we will see you guys another time. It's been well spent.